My guest today is Salman Raza, who is a biomedical engineer by degree, an auditor by profession, and a reformist and visionary at heart. He leads training and workshops on leadership and soft skills, meeting and teaching 1,000 new people every year. With decades of experience, Salman's work provides him with a better understanding of our various emotions and behaviors. In today's episode, he and I talk about his latest book, Life's Non-Conformities, an auditor's tale of practical applications of social, emotional, and behavioral changes that teaches readers how to nurture their inner awareness and surroundings to develop deeper, more rewarding personal and professional relationships. Welcome to Lifeology.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I am looking forward to this. You reached out to my website and wanted to be on my show. So thank you for obviously listening to my show. But I was really intrigued because an auditor, many people don't know that. And so I really I'm excited rather about the show because I will bring psychology together and you'll bring your experience together to help people really understand how to enact with other people. So what is an auditor?
Well, thanks for that opportunity. The auditor can be used in different contexts. Primarily, a lot of time people associate auditing with financial auditing. But I personally, I'm in medical device regulations. So my job as an auditor, we go to medical device manufacturer and then we assess and make sure that the device they are making they meet all the regulations and they are safe to use. So my job intrinsically is to go and make sure that the device safety is intact before they come into market. So that's what we do as an auditor.
Wow. And that's a lot. I don't want to say liability, but that's a huge job in the sense of to be able to make sure that whatever the device is functional and can obviously help the people. Because without that, of course, there can be a lot of damage that way.
Exactly. So it's our job to make it safe.
Yeah. How did you take your background as a biomedical engineer, as an auditor, and how did you transition into leadership and teaching soft skills?
Interesting, because being an auditor, I was traveling every week and meeting new people every day, and the interaction is very important, and effective communication is very important. So
yes.
We work under very tight deadlines and time constraints, and by very nature of this job, you have to inform people that you don't meet, and there's $1 million at stake because they want their products out as quickly as possible, and we are saying no, your product is not safe or not meet that. So that communication becomes very, very critical. Finding the ways of making it more effective so that people don't take it personally, people work with you rather than against you. So a lot of times in my previous years gone by, when I hadn't learned these techniques, and a lot of people in my profession, they are the enemy number one because they always tell people what they don't want to hear. So my inspiration and motivation was just to not to be seen or felt as the enemy number one. And my objective is the same: to save patients and safe use of the device.
Lives, yeah. Wow, that is amazing. And I always like it how life just gives us opportunities. So here you have your background, but the more awareness you have as far as the interpersonal effectiveness and the communication styles, you have this awareness to be able to say, wait a minute, there's something here. And so from that, your life evolved, or you're the amalgamation of who you are today. And so that's wonderful to see that. Once again, the lesson for all of us is that when we're at one in our life, if we have more observation, a lot of things, we'll see there's probably more that we can do. And that's how we can level up, if you will, to the next chapter of our life.
Absolutely.
So I want to transition into your book, Life's Non-Conformities, an auditor's tale of practical applications of social, emotional, and behavioral strategies. I was reading the information that you had sent me, and it's interesting because this book is really for anyone when they start their career, from the very beginning of the career to people who are later on, in the C-suite or managerial roles. And I love that because it's so important because we're all somewhere in that spectrum. And so I love the fact that your book really reaches all of the individuals. When you wrote it, you were pretty authentic when you talked about your own struggles. Tell me a little bit about your own struggles and how you understood that there could be, I guess, more effective communication.
Absolutely. This is the most important thing that I wanted to communicate, that I don't project myself as infallible, and I don't project myself that I know it all. And the prime objective of this book is that the mistakes that I have made, people learn from them and then try to not make those mistakes. And so the
Yes.
whole idea is, I'm sure you will talk about it, and people are talking about it, leading with vulnerability. So
Yes.
when you show your vulnerable side to people, you become relatable. So people say, "Ah, I know, I like this
Yes.
because I can see myself making the same mistake, or I have made those mistakes." So uh, the idea of this book and communication is be authentic. I'm not infallible. I don't
Hmm.
claim that I will never make those mistakes again. I continuously make those mistakes. But the whole idea is
Yeah.
let's join and learn together and grow together.
Exactly. And that's one thing I really appreciate you saying that, because that's one thing that's for me as well as being a quote expert. So if people may not be able to see me with my hands are in quotations. But yeah, I don't want to be in that role because I make a lot of mistakes all the time. And it's when people put you on a pedestal, you will make that mistake and be like, oh, look at you. And it's like, no, I'm no
Yes,
different than you. I just happen to talk about this every single
absolutely.
day.
Yeah, yeah.
In your book, you talk about, well, I'm going to say a few things, but we'll get to each one of those. You talk about the Myers traits inventory. And then you talk about that. You talk about the ego strengths. You talk about interpersonal effectiveness. I want to go through each of those. So we have probably about 20, 15 minutes to be able to talk about those things. So I want to really focus on those because there's so much that your book talks about. And I don't want to minimize it because there's, like I said, so much meat in there that anyone who reads this is going to be blown away because you've done so much work. Of course, as an auditor, you've did your homework and then some. Let's talk about the ego strength. What does that mean for you, so people conceptually understand what that is?
Yeah, so I feel ego management is one of the most important aspect and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times overlooked. We all are born with ego, and we do need that
Mm-hmm.
ego because that gives
Mm-hmm.
us motivation and inspiration and confidence and all that self-esteem.
Sure.
However, if we let that ego uncontrolled, we put ourselves in unnecessary conflict scenarios. So just
Yes.
to give an example, if we were riding a horse, we need to be controlling that horse rather than other way around, and horse is taking us.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need that horse because we need to go far away, but we want that horse to go where we want to go rather than. So
I
ego
see what
has
you
the
mean.
same impact. We need to control that. Otherwise, once our ego is triggered, our rational mind stop working, and then we start
Yes.
behaving reactively, and a lot of things we say and do that we later regret because our rational mind was at the back end, and ego
Mm-hmm.
took over. So being aware of my ego, my triggers, and all the things that we hear, it helps us become aware of ourselves and people around us.
Yes. And I want to piggyback off that as well. I always like to think of this as before you do anything, I always ask yourself, what's my motivation or what's my intention? So at the other side of it, how do I want to feel? What's the outcome I'm looking for? And so when you can be aware of that, then when you do have that trigger of something, because we all get triggered by something, when we do have that spike of emotion that comes up, they're like, oh, I need to prove myself, or I'm going to be right, or I'll show them. All of a sudden that goes away from the direction, or in other words, the objective that I had. And so when you can come up with the awareness prior to that, for example, we talked about the objective of the show prior to that. And so we both have a track of where we're going to go. And so I think when people can really be mindful of what is the objective for any interaction, any conversation, when they can set their intention that way, they'll know that when the ego does flare, and it probably will, they can make that choice to go in the direction of the ego, or they can manage it and realize that I still want to accomplish this goal. So therefore, what are the decisions and what are the things I'm going to do to be able to make sure I can accomplish my goal?
Absolutely. Vision is very important, and objectives, as you
Mm-hmm.
said. So vision of life, vision of company, a personal vision, whatever vision, and then that drills down the mission and then the individual situation.
Yeah.
We have an objective, as you said. So we need to make sure that we align, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and make sure that we stay on track. The other thing I think it's very important to add here, uh, sometimes we have to disassociate the behavior with us. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm not angry, there is an anger in me. So, once
Yes.
I
I like that. I
start
like that.
feeling that way, once I start train my brain, I'm not angry. There is an uninvited anger that has infiltrated in me. So once
Hmm.
I say anger is not me, it's just in me. So I need to
Hmm.
take it out. So I'm a neutral person. I can be, emotions comes and go. So once we are aware of our emotions and the triggers that brought those emotions inside me, then we are aware and we know how to handle and manage them.
Yes. I want to go back to the whole thing when it comes to vulnerability. How can a person still have an ego and demonstrate ego, but also demonstrate vulnerability? Is there a balance there?
Absolutely, there is. Everything in life has to have balance.
Hmm.
But the main thing is that we don't give impression to our counterparts that I'm
Okay.
any way or shape or form better than them, because
Yes, I understand that.
that's put the my counterpart into defensive mode, and their
Hmm.
ego triggers at some point. And once we are at level field, then it's a
Hmm.
rational conversation, and then we can learn from each other. I'll give an
Hmm.
example. I have covered that in my book. At that time, a few years ago, my daughter was 5 at that point. We
No.
are sitting together, and she came and she just gave a comment, and she said, "Daddy, you look fat and ugly."
Oh
And
my
I
God.
looked at her and we all smiled. And I kept smiling after that. And then, subsequent to that comment, I start reflecting why I didn't feel threatened, why I didn't
Yeah.
feel enraged. She has those words, if said by anyone in the world, including my wife or anyone, it would have triggered my ego and I would have been raging. But
Yes. Yes.
then on reflection, I realized I'm at peace with her. She is not competing with me at any levels, conscious, subconscious.
Hmm.
At any level, I'm not in competition. She's not competing. I'm not threatened by her presence. So that peace of mind, I know it's a utopian state, and we may not achieve that with every individual in the world, but that utopian state of mind
Hmm.
made me stay calm in my senses, even though very outrageous expression was shared with me on my
Sure.
face. So that is what we are trying to achieve. If we become more and more aware of it, the
Hmm.
probability of achieving or getting close to that state is a lot higher, and then we
Yes.
manage a lot of situations in our favor.
And, I don't know how old your daughter is now, but do you ever tell her? Do you ever bring that up to her later?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And she,
It's hysterical.
funny enough, I lost a lot of weight after that comment, and I took it seriously. I lost
That's
35
funny.
pounds, and then
Good for you.
she now says, "I didn't mean that. I just said it. I want the old you." But anyway,
That's so
um,
cute.
so that is
But I love the fact that you had that recognition and you weren't outraged where you could have with other people. And so to have that awareness, it also goes back to I think confidence as well. When you have confidence of what you know you are versus what you are not, then you have the ability to allow things in or not. And I think that goes back with personal boundaries and personal awareness of the concept of who I am. I am this, I am not that. And so the recognition of what do we allow in versus what we don't allow in, I think really speaks to one's ego strength. Because if ego goes outside of quote the boundary of what is us to protect ourselves or to defend ourselves, well, we may have some self-doubt that we didn't realize was maybe a blind spot. So if I'm like, oh well, they're saying this about me, well, let me reflect on that. Do I think that's true? Is that true? And so that's I think a time of self-reflection to say, I thought this is me. I thought I was really powerful and strong in who I am. But if I'm allowing someone else to trigger me, let me take a moment to do self-reflection to say, well, what do I really believe about myself? Because in the forefront of things, or on the periphery or the superficial aspect of it, we know who we are. But if there's something within us, we haven't really looked at that enough to say, wait a minute, that doesn't really resonate with me. So if I allow someone else to trigger me, maybe that's my own inability to be as introspective, not inability, but like I said, the blind spot to be as introspective as I could be.
absolutely. And the management of ego, so it's directly linked with the self-esteem and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Certainly.
someone has triggered that or tried to trigger that, my self-esteem and my confidence should tell me, I know I'm better than that. I don't need to get involved in that
Exactly.
petty conversation. So that
Yes.
confidence, yeah, you can say or believe what you want. I know who I am, and I'm better
Hmm.
than this. I don't need, you cannot drag me into where you are. So I
Exactly.
will
It's my
behave as
choice.
I want me to behave. And yeah, I don't get perturbed by if you are saying bad things about me because I know who I
Hmm.
am and what I am.
Exactly. I love that. I think that's so important because we often, in many cases, we know who we are, but then other things, like I said, blind spots or things people can say can enrage us. And so that is something just at whatever level people are in their life, nobody can control us unless we allow them to control us.
Absolutely.
I want to transition into the Myers-Briggs. Tell people more about that because I'm interested to hear what your philosophy, your thoughts are regarding that.
Yeah, well, Myers-Briggs type indicator is one of the tools. It's not the only
Hmm.
tool. There's several tools,
Hmm.
and I have used that in my book as the because we had to choose one, but there are several others. Um, the before we do that, if we were to imagine our existence in a pyramid or a triangle,
Hmm.
the base of a triangle is universal. So every human being is born with universal instincts. So
Hmm.
we got hungry, we got thirsty, we have emotions, we have all those things.
Yeah.
So that is universal. Everyone has it. And then the in the middle, it's cultural things. So that's learned.
Yes.
So people around me, practices around me, that is cultural, and I learn, and that can be unlearned or learned differently. So that's culture.
Hmm.
And then at the top of the pyramid, it's personality. That's me, unique to me.
Sure.
So we move from groups, smaller group, and then person. So
Hmm.
Myers-Briggs um, is one of the tools that help us identify about self-awareness, what I am, what my preferences are. And then once I understand myself better, then I can say, okay, there can be other types. Of course, there are other types. Once I know what my preferences are, I know how to navigate as per my preference. So,
Exactly.
for example, I'm an introvert person. A few years ago, I was not a public speaker. I hate to be in public spot. But once I became aware, okay, this is my preference, I get energized in my own reflection, and I need
Hmm.
my
Your
personal
space.
time. But I know people opposite me, they like people around them to get the energy. So I now tell myself, my prefrontal activity, you understand that. I have taught myself when I'm in public eye, I need to behave outside what's not natural to
Yes.
me. But I have taught
Yes.
myself to do that. Now it is more draining. A lot of extrovert people, they find it natural. It comes naturally to them. They can do it day and out without even thinking it.
Hmm.
When I have to do it, it takes a lot of me. So I get drained very quickly. So the awareness of personality types, it doesn't change you as such, but it gives you opportunity to improve and be mindful and act differently,
Yes.
which you previously didn't know.
Yeah.
So there are several things. Of course, we don't need to go into details of 16 different
The
aspects of
dichotomies. Yeah.
Myers-Briggs, but
Uh,
the general principle is become aware of yourself, where you are, what your preferences is,
yes.
and once you know your preferences, how you're going to interact with those preferences, so
Yes.
we can
Yes.
get that done.
I really like the fact that you bring in one's culture as well. So if I'm speaking to someone who has a different culture than me, my understanding of how the conversation is going to go may be different. So I gesture a lot. People who can see me right now on camera, they can see my hands are moving a lot. And that's how I talk. That's how my mind processes. That's how I think. And that allows me to orient my thoughts where other people may not do that. And so I know in some cultures that can be considered rude and that can be considered inappropriate. So there's lots of things that one has to be aware of when they interact. So I love the fact that not only are we looking at one's personality type, but the acculturation aspect of how do I connect with someone else. So not only is a culture can be from a country, but a culture can also be the family culture. My family culture may be different than your family culture, or than the people who live next to me, and then that can be maybe my town's culture is different, then my state's culture is different, my country. So it moves itself out. So not only do we have to look at how we look at the world in our own culture, but the understanding of the other person's culture and to be aware that their culture is just as wonderful and beautiful as mine. It just may be different. And so it is really reading the room, if you will, and the nuances of how to interact with people in a healthy, effective way.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Culture is a group phenomena. So wherever there is a group, there
Hmm.
will be a culture. So when you compare nations, the nation culture, then organization culture, and
Yes.
family culture. So yes, absolutely.
When I was, first I'm going to have a couple more minutes here, but because literally this time flew by. When I was thinking about this as we were talking, is I really like the fact that your book, it comes from obviously I love the fact that your book comes from a place of all of your research, all the stuff that you've done, and it combines my world, your world, and everyone else's world together to really understand that everybody can understand this. Anybody can do this, meaning they can learn this rather. And so when you learn it, you'll see the efficacy of your conversations. You'll see the efficacy of your interactions, and the efficacy of just everything of your life in general will level up. So I really want my listeners to understand that this book, I highly endorse this book, and I really can't wait for my listeners to purchase it. So one more time, Life's Non-Conformities, an author's tale of practical applications of social, emotional, and behavioral strategies. So Salman, with that in mind, thank you so much. Like I said, we flew out of time. If my listeners want to find out more information about you and to purchase this book, where would they find this information online?
Yeah, thank you. Book is available in all global major outlets, including Amazon. You can also get the book from my website, salmanraza.net. And happy to people to learn and become aware of the topics that we have covered. Most
Excellent.
importantly, it's not about text only. It's the practical
Correct.
application, my personal
Yes.
story. So you'll hopefully find relatable.
Which I'm sure they will. Salman Raza, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on my show today. My listeners also know that if they can't find this information any other place, simply go to the show notes at jamesmillerlifeology.com, and I will link you all with Salman's information and also where you may purchase his book. Thanks again, Salman. I appreciate it.
Thank you.